Okay, I started the recording. We're going to start in just a minute or so. So just so you know that I have a YouTube channel for RDP courses, so for the last two recordings that I did, I published the links in announcements, and I'm recording this session, so I intend to do that as well. And I think if you subscribe to the channel, then you probably should be able to get into that and see it. They're all public views, so that there's no problem there. So you can view them from just about anywhere without any kind of permission. So just so you know that's happening. So tonight's webinar will probably be ready likely tomorrow afternoon or something like that. And if you don't see it, you can send me an email and remind me. Right, so I'll just kind of go over again is that I noticed a lot of people, I don't think looked at the course content in terms of my welcome message. And, I just want to reiterate that if you're trying to communicate with me, I prefer that you go through my RDP email and not communicate with me through Blackboard. And why is because the only time I really check my Blackboard email is when I'm in my home office. And many times I'm out and I work off my smartphone so that you could send me an email. The RDP email comes to my smartphone and make it helpful for me so I can respond to you quicker. So one is that use the heading in the email to let me know what you'd like, and please let me know which class you're from. So if you're from Z class, then I can relate to the issue that is likely respective to Z instead of B or C streams. And that way, again, it allows me not to have to go into some file to find something to help you. And if you provide a little bit of a description, of what you're looking for, chances are I could respond right away, and you'll get a response a lot quicker than if I have to come home, go into my home office and find out all about it. A second thing is that chances are, if you have a question, chances are many of your colleagues have that same question. And what I'll do is I will publish that question on Blackboard in announcements anonymously, so your name's not attached with it, and I will answer that question. And then it's good information to pass on to the rest of the class, because sometimes it's pretty important what's going on. All right. So one is, let me know who you are. Use your full name, please, so that I can find you, on the, on Blackboard as well, on the, the marking side. Two, let me know what stream you're at, and three, give me an idea of what's, what the issue is and how I can help you. Okay, so that's where that is. And so topic two is the commentary. I'll explain this all over again, is that the key area of study for you in this course is to go into each topic, and each topic has a slide deck of about 70 to 80 slides. And that's where the content really is, to be able to start your studying for the tests. Now, where that goes is that you can see that Professor Powers has done a lot of video recordings that I've kept for your information, so that if you have a question around some slide in that slide deck, there's chances are there's one recording in that topic that could help you and elaborate on it. Now, the reason for my topic commentary presentation is to be able to help you focus, to find out, it will give you a sense of what's important in that slide deck and where you go with that slide deck and the topic. And normally what I have in my commentary presentations is I have highlighting, and I use these little golden keys. So if you see a little golden key on a particular slide, you'll know that that item on that slide is very important. Okay? And so this is all to help you really do better on the tests and really get in tune to what you really need to know for the homework as well, for the assignments, the individual assignments and the group assignments. So it's all there to help you. If there's any other way I can help you, please email me. I'd be happy to kind of consider maybe different things that I can do to help you even more. But again, I keep on coming back to everything that we take and each topic as we go along will help you or contributes to the assignments that you have to do. So I'll give an example. So we're going to talk about cost accounting, and you're going to have a participation assignment around building a gingerbread house. But I'm going to give you a template, and if not, form your own template if it's not supplied. And whatever work that you do in that participation, it's going to come up in your cupcake assignment, your group assignment, and you'll have really done a lot of the background learning to be able to answer the questions in the cupcake assignment much more effectively, and you'll be able to reuse that template, and by that time you'll have used that template for an earlier participation activity, so that learning is going to help you do better on those assignments. And just like this last assignment that's due in April on your team assignment, it's about Amazon, and there's a lot of things, a lot of questions that you're going to be looking at. There's 30 questions in that Amazon paper, and you only have to do a certain number of them to get a total points of 100 to get marked. And the thing is that you're preparing yourself as you go along. So the best thing that you could do is, as you get into your group of 3, you can print that out right away. If you want to find that assignment, it's easy to find. You can either find it in the topics, or I do have an assessments section in Blackboard where all the assignments are listed, and you can print that out and discuss what you're going to do. And what I implore you to do is read the instructions thoroughly for all assignments to understand what the deliverable requirements are and how I'd like you to organize them, so I can spend more time looking at your content than trying to figure out what you said. Okay, so I'd really appreciate that. You're going to get better marks for listening and adhering to those instructions. I will promise you that. Okay, so we're going to start with topic 2. Again, the recording is going, so this recording then will be put on my YouTube channel, and also you can access it right through the MS Teams file as well, because they're all on the MS Team class file or grouping for this, or basically our class team. Okay, so they're there. Any questions before I get started? You can unmute, ask me a question. Okay, we've got a really good participation group tonight, and I'm hoping that I can give you some really good insights. All right, as we're going through, we've got let me see, we got a lot of people here, so that's goodness. Okay, so let's get started. So again, this is all about management principles, but I want to kind of try to help you in terms of understanding that there's some success principles that should help you along and make you a better business practitioner. So I try to throw in a couple of helpful hints, hopefully, and this is all about helping you, get to some level of mastery in business, right? So we'll go from there. And so what I wanted to talk to you about is, in real estate, the 3 most attributes of real estate are location, location, location. And in business, the 3 most important attributes are communication, communication, communication. So right on the screen here, and I don't think it's on the copy that's posted in Blackboard because I just put this on today, but I've been subscribing to Gary Gernard, GENARD newsletters for the last 5 years. And they're so helpful in helping you communicate. And I'm saying is that, just Google Gary Gernard and the Gernard method, and you can get on his newsletter. It's free. And the thing is, if you've been on his newsletter long enough, you can download so many great hacks on speaking and parts of his publications, so that you don't even have to buy his books. It's all there. And if you spend about a year or 2 in with Gary Gernard, it's really going to help you in how you can communicate to small groups, how you can communicate in class, how you can communicate to larger areas. And then what's really going to help you is when you get into business and you have some sort of managerial role, you'll be able to be much more effective at being a great manager. So that's why I wanted to share that with you. So it's Gary Gernard. He has the Gernard method. He's been around. He's from the UK, and his newsletters are short. So it's just a few minutes to read some of his articles, and you really get some really insightful points from that. And the thing is, if you have a smartphone, download Flipboard. On Flipboard, you can take in subjects that are related to where you want to take your career, and all this really helps you to be able to be a better, effective manager. Okay, one more thing. Okay, so this one, oh, I didn't put it in here. Sorry. Okay, I'll talk to you about it. I came across an article just yesterday, and what it talked about is that where artificial intelligence is and where it's going. And essentially, artificial intelligence is going to affect the white-collar worker as much as it is a low-skilled worker. Doctors are going to be replaced because artificial intelligence will go to the World Data Bank and do a diagnosis with all the information that's out there. So when you say, well, what use will we be with artificial intelligence? And what it is that it's judgment. So what you really need to think about going forward, and really it kind of aligns with management principles, is understand critical thinking and how to be better at critical thinking, and that will bring you value. And I've always said this, and this is something that I read years ago, is that if you're in the top 20% of your field, especially in today's world where we're all contractors, you will always have employment, right? Because you'll be one of the sought after people in that field. And understanding how to be a great critical thinker and understanding how to communicate better will really help you stay in that top 20%. So I'll leave that with you. That's my helpful hints, hopefully, for this week, and we'll get into the course. Okay, so I'm going to try to give you a picture every week of what you had to do. And I'm hoping that you're reading the Blackboard instructions when I send them, because I already published a piece of what were the requirements to satisfy or deliverables in week 1 and what they are for week 2. So if you go into topics in week 2, you're going to see these Pearson Revel surveys. So again, for week 2, you need to do 4 of them. The 5th one is it's not on Pearson Revel, and then you just download the actual survey and you fill it out. There's a little bit of glitch there. I wanted to, I didn't put it in as an assignment so you can upload the filled out survey. So I'm going to do that the next day. I just made myself a note on my notepad, so by tomorrow, it should be there. And then from an individual point of view, there's 2 participation topics, right? And one is, just you're going to go through a whole pile of cognitive biases, that you're going to see that I'm going to show you one slide that I pulled out of that slide deck in topic 2 to make sure that that's all important, and understand that. And then I want you to kind of name one, and again, thinking about all of this is all preparation for your individual project assignment on manager style determination, which is due in February. So again, it's all building blocks that anything that you're doing, I'd say 95% of what you're going to do in the participation, you're going to be using in the assignments, and that so that the more attention and focus that you put on these assignments, even though that they're small in terms of marks, will have great payoff in helping you do a better assignment, either an individual assignment or a group assignment. Okay, participation 2B, you're going to identify your personality dimensions from 2 theories. And again, I talked about in the video that I did for you, that's on the evolution of management theories. The last 4 or 5 slides, it talks about that very assignment of the manager style self-determination, and I talked about how I'm marking that. So you really need to bring theory into any assertion that you make. One is show me which ones apply to you, and then show me how that applies. What have you done with that? And demonstrate that you know something about that theory. So here's the first practice in participation 2B to help you do that. And if you have any questions about those assignments, please email me and I'll return the email. And again, you know, if it's if I know it will help your colleagues, I will actually publish that on assignments as well. Okay, so any questions about that? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to chat here because I can't see it all on my second screen. But you know, use the chat as well. You know, if you have a question, put it on chat. And I may not pick it up tonight because I'm not watching it all the time. But if I do pick it up, I'll answer it right there. And if not, I will email or put it on announcements and answer it on announcements. You know, either tomorrow morning or something like that. Okay. So that's week 2. That's what you have to do. Week 1, you know, I've listed. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, for participation 2B, do we need to input our a short comments on it, or just the screenshot of the assessment?
Oh, just put a screenshot of the assessment and then do your commentary. All right. So, you know, identify your personality dimensions from 2 theories, you know, how they connect to the theories that are discussed in the content, and we're there. Okay, does that answer your question?
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thanks for that question. I really appreciate questions because you know, then it gives me a sense of, you know, are we together? Are we getting this done, you know, as a group? And am I resonating with you on this material? Okay. All right. So okay, all right. So already, you know, I talked about, you know, what's really important, what to focus on, and to take, you know, watch where I highlight in yellow and then watch where I put these golden keys, and so that you know that that's an important area to go back to the major slide deck in the topic section. And this one, you know, we talk about decision-making styles, which, you know, there's likely going to be some sort of test question on that. So that's where I'm trying to guide you to. So let's talk about that, the different decision-making styles. You know, one is directive style, and that's basically focused on the facts and very transactional, and bringing to, you know, people to some objective outcomes, and very kind of there's no, it's transactional. The second one is analytical style, and that's where, you know, you really are careful about, as a decision maker, you know, what information that you've used, and around how you address your alternatives. And again, if I can comment on myself, I'm more of an analytical, you know, in that arena in terms of styles. And you know, in another survey, you know, personality survey, I'm classified as a let me see here. An expressive analytical. So it really, you know, if you look at my Myers-Briggs, I'm right on the line between introvert and extrovert. So I consider myself a closet introvert, but I can speak enough to be able to get my point across because I've been doing this for so many years. But yet my predominant area is analytical, and that's where I'll come from. Although I'm very conceptual, and I like to formulate ideas, and in the conceptual style, it's all about, you know, your intuition and long-term perspectives, and seeing how this all comes together from a systems point of view. And then a behavioral style, you know, I like to be liked, and so that a lot of the times I really will consider, you know, what are the people impact of these decisions. So what I'm trying to tell you is that it's not just one style that you have a predominant style. And oh, by the way, from a, you know, a personality perspective, it's not static. You know, you will change, you know, and these personality tests that you're taking right now, it's a snapshot of where you are right now. But there's a person by the name of Massey, and he talked about you are what you are because of what you were when. And his whole premise is around when people undergo these significant emotional events, like people that experienced maybe a key assassination in their country, they know exactly where they were and what time and what they were doing, and that changed their perspective for some reason. Or if you have a big family thing that happens where you lose a family member or whatever, that's a significant emotional event, and that will change. Or if you get fired from a job, there's certain things that you don't want to do the next time. So your style will change based on that undergoing those kind of significant emotional events. So what I'm saying is they're not static, they're dynamic, and 2 years from now, based on how much you learn, how much insights that you take in, how much discipline that you apply to increase your skills, you will be a different person. And maybe the predominant style that you have a person might even change. Or you may have the same predominant style, but you'll have a better appreciation of bringing in additional styles to be able to set the situation. So those are the kind of things you need to work on. So it's important to know what decision-making styles are. So again, if you take what I just showed you and you put it on a 2x2 matrix, and we're going to talk a lot about 2x2 matrices. I mean, they're used in business all the time, and they're really good conceptually to get the points across. So if you take a look at where I would sit, I'd probably be, really high in this top quadrant in terms of, worrying about people and having a tolerance for ambiguity. On the conceptual side, I might be here. On the directive side, I may be, here. And then on the behavioral side, I may be here. So you would draw, basically a connection, and that will shift, right? And you don't know where that's going to shift based on what happens to you from an experiential point of view on, how you live your life and how you live your business life. So that's what to think about when this is happening. Okay, so here, here's just a little more description around those particular styles. So analytical, careful, decision maker, data and info driven, that's more, and I guess, I'm a chemical engineer, so you can see that, my analytical leaning comes from, from way back when. And then conceptual, intuition, big picture, risk taking, directive, efficient, logical, and let me say transactional. And some people have a hard time working with transactional managers. It's terms of, well, as an employee working for me, if you do this, you get that, right? It's just straight, quid pro quo, and that doesn't work in a lot of cases. And then behavioral, receptive to suggestions, avoiding conflicts, seeking consensus, bringing people on in terms of engaging them and all those things. And that's when you're high on people and social concerns. So that's key. All right. So now we're going to talk about different types of decision models. And I just want to tell you about the garbage can model. And I don't know where the name came from, but in any case, there it is. But again, it's highlighted so that we know that it's important. I want you to go back into, again, your topic slide deck and kind of find out. But here's what's key about that. It's organized anarchist view of decision making. So when I first saw that, I thought, what are they talking about? So what I did was I created a definition for you, so you really know what organized anarchies are. And it's characterized by a sense of chaos and a lot of action going on, a lot of dynamism. And problem solutions are loosely coupled, and proposed solutions change during bargaining, and all participants involved don't get the chance to fully participate. And I've done a lot of this in my experience, okay? So I've done a fair amount of consulting after I left TELUS, and I've done a lot of strategic planning for municipalities. And lo and behold, for municipalities, when you're doing a strategic plan, you want to engage the citizens, the ratepayers, the taxpayers. And what you do is you run town hall meetings. Well, think of that. You get a town hall meeting, there might be 150 people there. You've really got to plan that agenda because, have you ever heard of the expression herding squirrels? It's hard to herd squirrels. And that's an organized anarchist view of decision making, because there's many people there, different agendas, different perspectives, different needs, all trying to get their own way. So what you need to do is you're trying to get full participation and find, you know, some common threads that make sense with the strategy you want for the municipality. So it's not easy, but that's the way of doing it. And so there's things that you should know about that, is that, you know, you sometimes you can really solve a large problem and get there. And sometimes as well, you can get to that decision before it becomes a great problem, and then after the decision, you know, the problem has moved on to another place. And so the thing is, though, what's limiting is that, you know, there's unrestricted access to any problem, any choice. So it's really hard to manage the agenda. You know, there's a hierarchical process, and then sometimes you have people that you know, want to push their will all the way through. So there's some downsides to that. So now I want to talk to you about a group versus individual organizations for making decisions, and they're totally different. You know, so on an individual side, you know, you can you can get things done a lot quicker. And what I found is that, you know, if you really want to work and get to some, you know, high performance outcome, you know, if you have a large group, it just, in some cases, it just doesn't work, or in other cases, it's a lot of cost to be able to, you know, get everybody aligned and work that through. So even, you know, I've done focus groups, and I would never do a focus group with over 12 people, because then you really, it just dilutes the agenda and you can't focus on one thing. And so there's advantages and disadvantages. And, you know, since this is highlighted, you should do a little more research on what's going on. Okay, so in terms of, you know, a larger group, well, you have a larger pool of knowledge. You have a lot more diversity in perspectives that turn into diversity for alternatives. A lot of intellectual stimulation, because there's things that come up that you never would have thought of, and that all comes together. And it's seen as more legitimate. Why? Because you're taking a large portion of the community you want to make a decision for, you know, be it, you know, you have 12 people in an organization of 50, so they feel that they're being represented. So they'll, you know, you'll get a lot more buy-in if you have a larger group. But like I said, it's less efficient. You know, you might get a few people that dominate. You might have ambiguous things that go on, or you might get into groupthink. And look at this groupthink here. This is highlighted as well. So you have to know, you know, what groupthink is all about. And you have to understand what satisficing is, and I'm going to talk about those two as we go through going forward. Okay, so the key then is to, you know, and these slides are pulled right out of that major slide deck. So, you know, what does it do in terms of groupthink? So let's talk about groupthink. So groupthink is basically the people in the group want to make a decision, and they'll all tend to go to the same solution. That's groupthink. And there's different reasons for that. And one is, sometimes if you have a management group that's worked together, say, for 10 years, they've done things the same way all the time, and they can't get beyond, you know, and another term that's coming is bounded rationality. They've done things for so many times that they can't think outside the box, and that's groupthink. Or there's a little bit of fear in the room, and they fear the leader, and they basically, you know, suggest things that's in line with what they think the leader would be looking for. That's groupthink as well. And what does it do? Key here, it undermines critical thinking. You know, it definitely reduces objectivity. You know, and then it reduces the critical analysis of unpopular views, and so that, you know, you're vulnerable there, and you want to minimize it. So that's, you know, that's what you have to consider. So do a little more research in groupthink, find out how that's overcome. Why? Because it's a very common problem, and when you get into a group, the first thing to do is to get a sense of, oh, it's here. So how do we deal with that? And bring it out, into the group, saying, hey, you know what, we're agreeing to, it's just too easy here. Let's look at how we can make decisions differently. And one way of getting out of groupthink is to bring in many alternatives to be able to evaluate, to get rid of that kind of bias. Okay, so I mentioned bounded rationality, and what that's all about, is it's a behavioral bias again, and it occurs when humans are making decisions, and they're trying to make it convenient, and that's what satisficing is. And if you look at this little drawing right here, it really kind of breaks it down quite nicely. Sometimes there's limited knowledge. So they're making a decision from limited knowledge and really don't understand what the overall problem is. And they'll land on something and say, yeah, that's it, and let's go with it. Or they don't have the capacity to understand from a cognitive point of view what that problem really looks like. And the other one, and very common, is time limits. There's always urgency around making a decision, especially for an organization that's undergoing a lot of change outside in the environment, and so that they will come up with a solution and not want to go any further because they're more worried about getting into the execution. But that doesn't help, right? Because if you make a short, considered a satisficing type of decision where you really haven't considered the outcomes, you might get into execution 2 months down the road and find out that you've hit a barrier that you should have really kind of considered in that overall analysis to make that decision, right? So what it is, it's bounded rationality. You use a rational model, but bounded by the ability to process all the information. And there's challenges, so we get into the satisficing. So understand what that is, and sometimes it's just hubris, that think, it's like, okay, we know everything, we're successful in this area, and we can do no wrong. So hey, this sounds like a good idea, let's do it, rather than truly analyze that decision. So that's a key concept. And so here's some of the components around that. There's awareness, ethicality, how rational the decision or the people in that group are looking at that solution, how much willpower there is, how much self-interest there is. But what's key to understand is these are all assumptions in that decision making. All right, these are all the assumptions that lead people to satisfice, to get on a solution saying, yeah, that'll do it. Instead of really looking at a few alternatives and considering, what the root causes are, and looking at the pros and cons of different alternatives to really get an overall perspective of what is the optimum solution, the optimum decision. So here's a model, right? So here's a model. You identify the problem, you establish the decision criteria, and we're going to talk about that. Those are the factors. What are the critical success factors to get to the outcomes? And then we weigh those factors because some factors are more important than others. And then we generate alternatives. And I put a note in here to kind of remind me to talk about total quality management. So I led a total quality management group at TELUS for a few years. And we would never look at anything with less than 3 alternatives. And that's just baked into the quality approach. And normally what would happen is that we would look at the pros and cons of alternative 1, 2, and 3. And by looking at that, we'd pull out, some of the good things in 1 and some of the good things in 2 and some of the good things in 3 for that matter, put it together and come up with alternative 4, which was much better than any one of those 3 alternatives. So that's some of the advantages that you get into that. And then you evaluate those alternatives. And then we're going to talk about that a little more. And then you select the best alternative, and then you move on to how can I execute on that decision, right? So what happens sometimes, though, is that as a manager, you solely have to make a decision. That's one thing. Or what happens is your superior or your superior has made a decision and you have to implement that decision. And you haven't engaged the people that are being affected, right? So I'm just going to go in and mute a few people here, right? So, okay. So how do you get them to accept a decision that they weren't part of? And that's what winning hearts and minds is all about. And this article, I put the link here so you can actually read this article if you want. But basically, what this article was saying is that don't try to do both. So I'll explain. So winning hearts is that taking the emotional side, trying to connect on the emotional side of a decision. So you can say, let's just a crazy example is that a company decided they normally gave turkeys to every employee at Christmas time. And they decided that they weren't going to give turkeys this year. And people, they're miffed saying, look, we got a turkey every year. Like, what's going on? Are they just trying to be, cheap? They're taking away something, some tradition. And so on an emotional level, as a manager, you could say, oh, well, you know what they've done? They thought that with all the homeless, in our city, that our company faces, we're going to take that money and we're going to provide food at Christmas time, for the homeless. So that's an emotional connection where people could say, yeah, that's a good idea. I can relate to that, and I can accept the fact that I'm not getting a turkey for Christmas. On the other side, if they took a rational point of view, they can say, well, you know what? We've got 10,000 people in the company, and to buy a decent turkey these days, that's $100. All right. So we're talking about $100,000. That's if we do that this year, we're not going to make a profit, and we'll have to lay off some workers. So that's the rational side, of winning minds. Right, so those two, and that's how you get people to buy in to that decision and honor it and work it towards meeting the goals of your organization. Okay, so here's a model, and what I'm saying, and I wish that I would have learned this many years before I went through my my corporate history, is that I never had a particular way of making decisions, and it never even occurred to me that there would be a model to follow. And now I'm a big proponent of mental models, right? So what I'm telling you is that there's many decision models out there, in the World Wide Web. And what I would recommend to you from a success point of view, as you're building mastery to get to where you want to be at a sort of a leading edge or elite practitioner in business, is that get a model, pick it, learn it, use it, and have it second nature, so you know exactly what you need to do, so it comes to you just really easily when you get into a problem and you have to make a decision. And that will serve you so well. And if you know anything about economics, economics, especially microeconomics, is all about making smart choices, right? The most benefits based on the cost of the next best alternative, and this will really get you there. I'll guarantee it for you that it will serve you quite well. So here's one typical one. You identify the problem, and then you identify the decision criteria. And those are factors of making that decision. And then you weight those factors, because you actually get an expected value, when you use that weighting factor, and I'll talk about that in an example. And then you develop those alternatives. When I talked about developing several alternatives, you analyze those alternatives, and then you can, we're really good at comparing. We're not so good at conceptualizing, the ultimate solution. So when we compare, we get better insights on how we can optimize, a key alternative to become, the ultimate decision. You select that alternative, and then you implement, and then you're always evaluating decisions. Why? Because you've made assumptions on that alternative. And you want to test those assumptions continuously. It's really important because you may invest millions of dollars on a particular product, and with all the information you have, you still might want to pilot that product in a key area that you could learn more from it, and then you launch that product, and then you continually measure what's going on, and if it starts to contradict some of the assumptions that you initially made, well, then you change your assumptions, you recalibrate, and you make that decision better in the long term, right? So that's key. But here I put a note, right? If you know anything about Kepner-Trigo, or you just have to go as far as Einstein in some of the quotes about what it is defining the problem. The more investment that you put into defining that problem, to really understanding the problem. Kepner-Trigo talk about the problem as understood, so that you've looked at all the key factors around that problem that are relevant. That's 90% of the solution. So if you don't do that work up front, you're going to miss something, and then it's going to cost you to be able to recalibrate to get to a better decision. So do it right. Really take a lot of effort into identifying that problem. Right? So that's the process. Now we're going to talk about factor rating analysis. So what it is that so here's an example of, and this is again right out of your slide deck, choosing a franchise location for Starbucks. So one factor might be daily traffic in that particular area. Another factor might be parking. So that if you can't park very many cars, that's not going to work. Another factor might be, can you profitability? Can you charge the right price and make the margins that you're looking for? Now, each one of those factors is different in importance, so you'll give that a weight. So what you'll do is you'll do a measurement on the factor, and you'll multiply it times the weight, and then you get an expected value for maybe 3 options that you're looking at, with that factor, and then you can start scoring. So here's the example that I found for you, because I used to teach production operations as well, and this was looking at 2 locations, and what they talk about is a weighted score, and the weighted score is because you actually take the factor a score and you multiply it times the weighting, which then gives you an expected value, all right? 0.25 times 70 is 17.5. And you can see that these weightings in percentage equal, 100% or 1. So that, you would work that through the critical success factors of your decision. And then you based on the weighting and then the score of, say what, labor availability is 70 out of 100 in France, but it's 60 out of 100 in Denmark. And that's 25% of the decision making. So the expected value is 25.25 times 70 is 17.5. And then you add up, your expected values of your scoring of the different factors to get a total. And you can see that France has a higher total. So that's where the location would be versus Denmark, 70.4 to 68. So that's how that works. Okay, so that's the factor rating example. Now let's look at just type of decisions. So some decisions that you're making are structured problems, which means they're pretty straightforward. You have all the facts, and so it's in some cases it's a routine solution. So they're easy to tackle, and you can lay that out much easily in your organization. But on the other side, there's unstructured problems, and they depend on things that you don't really know. They depend on trends. It could be climate. It could be, employment. It could be, inflation or whatever that relate to, what the buying power of your new product is going to be like. So that information is ambiguous, and you're based on, your best forecasting methods and who you talk to and where you got your information, but it's not there. And that's when I talk about having the assumptions that you have, so you might say, well, based on the assumption that the employment rate is going to stabilize, then we know that there's going to be a stable buying power for this particular product, right? But you go in and you test that, every few months or whatever to make sure that, yes, unemployment is stabilized, and that's a fact. But if it starts varying or goes up or goes down, you will recalibrate on your decision based on a revised assumption going forward. Okay, so that's key. So it's structured problems and unstructured problems. Again, these are highlighted areas, so you want to go back into the overall slide deck and topic 2 and find out what that's all about. And then, what are some of those conditions? Well, certainty, like taxes, that's certain, all right? The risks that's involved, and then the uncertainty. And there's these things about making decisions is that sometimes you know what you know, that's certain, and then you know what you don't know, so that really applies to risk. You know what you don't know, so there may be some things in there in terms of conditions that could change, that could really affect you. And then you don't know what you don't know, and that's dangerous, right? That's where you get uncertainty, and that's where you should be doing other ways of planning in terms of different types of planning, looking at different situations of what the possible outcomes could be. All right. Okay. So making decisions with uncertainty, now we're getting into another model. And making decisions with uncertainty, there's 3 components, and you should know what these components are, right? So there's max, and that is determined by maximizing the largest possible gain. But here's the condition around that. Most people who do this are optimistic, and they're risk takers because they're only looking at that best reward, and they're not really looking at how conditions could change or whatever. And then there's the maxi-min approach, and that's where you maximize the minimal possible payoff. So you're knowing that, at best I'm going to make this and I'm still going to be viable, right? And it's a bit pessimistic because, you want to try to get more towards certainty. And then the other one is mini-max, and what you're trying to do then is you're trying to take the risk out of it and have the minimum regret. So what that means is you need to create a regret table. And that's the next slide in your topic 2 slide deck, where you're building this regret table. All right. Without going into the videos that Professor Powers did, I found a quick little video on the internet, which I have the link here, and you can take a look at this. And here's the link for it. It's on YouTube. And let me go back to this maxi-max, and you really should know the definitions around these. So I painstakingly found the definition for maxi-max criteria, and that's the optimistic criteria. It's a decision rule that selects the alternative that has the highest possible payoff, regardless of the probabilities of the outcomes, regardless of the conditions, right? All right, and so let's look at that. So here, in this video, the author puts out the maxi-max view, and it's whether you should buy bonds, stocks, or mutual funds. And right then you look at, what is the maximum outcome based on different conditions, and it's 70, right? So the best one for bonds is 45. The best one for stocks is 70, you see, and the best one for mutual funds is 53, right? 53 is larger than 45 and minus 5. And then you say, okay, so based on maxi-max, I'm going to buy stocks, okay? But now you say, well, hang on, I'm a little, I want a little more certainty on what I can do. So let's look at the maxi-min, the best of the worst of what could happen. And then so you take a look, well, with bonds, the worst that could happen is that I'll still make a profit of 5, right? In stocks, the worst that could happen is, I can go, I'll have a negative return. And then the worst that could happen for mutual funds is, I I'll lose 5 on that as well. So from the worst of the alternatives, 5 is the better one, and that's the choice. Okay, and the video will explain this, but that kind of goes. So on the third one, where you're looking at, when you're looking at minimax, all right, what you're trying to do is you want to build this regret table, and how you'll do that. It shows you how to do that, and what you've taken now is that here's the calculation. So when you look at bonds, right now it's showing a return of 40, but the best return in the growing market is 70. So what you would have in the regret table is that you would lose 30 return if you invested in bonds. Here in stocks, well, it does return 70, so that you wouldn't lose any money. And then what happens then is that you pick out the least amount of returns, and you're saying, yeah, so for the least amount of regret, I would buy mutual funds, and that's how you get to this number. So you need to understand that little piece. I think if you go through the video, it'll be a lot more self-explanatory. Okay? All right, I'm talking a lot. I'm just going to check the chat if anybody has any question at all. There's no questions. Can I just show maybe an emoticon? Show me some thumbs up if we're all okay, if you're following me all right. Okay, can I see that? Okay, good, thank you. All right, so the next thing is cognitive bias. And again, already participation, I think it's two-way, asks you, about a cognitive bias. So you should know, what these are all about. So let me just pick one here, bandwagon effect. So let's say that there's a run on buying an Amazon stock, and the stock is just going up and up. And the thing is, it's hundreds of thousands of people are buying Amazon stock. So you say, oh, it must be good if everybody's buying it. So that's a bandwagon effect. I'm going to buy it too, right? Or a focusing bias, so that if you've got the blinders on and you're always looking at a key area, you'll make a different determination because it's skewed and not looking at the whole picture, right? And that's another kind. So I'd like you to go through these and understand what they are. And chances are there's something going on in the test about cognitive biases. So let's talk about the role of artificial intelligence in decision making. Okay.
Sorry.
So, yeah, go ahead.
For focusing bias, can you give an example of that?
A cognitive bias?
The focusing.
Focusing bias. Okay, so let's say that. Let's look at real estate. And there's somebody wanting to buy a piece of real estate, commercial real estate, and they've known strip malls all their career. So instead of looking at the different kinds of real estate in a city, because sometimes there's warehouses, and then there's strip malls, and then there's big retail buildings, they will just look at strip malls and try to make a determination of the overall market based on strip malls, when the conditions for large warehouses could be a lot different. And they'll make a decision to buy a big warehouse based on what they know just about strip malls. And that's the focus part. That's the focus bias. And it's personal because they'll have a preference because that's what they've done, way back when, and that's how they found things out. And that may not be relevant in today's world. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay. All right. Thanks for that question. I appreciate that question. Okay, so let's get back to artificial intelligence. And it's the machine's ability to replicate human learning and cognitive functions. All right, but here's the effect of using AI, especially on the front end of you looking at the data, is that in today's data, and it's big data now. If you take a look at like how how companies will put bots into social media data and pull out, preferences in a particular, cohort group like millennials or whatever, and which they really couldn't do on a manual basis. It would take years. All right, so they can't process all the information, but they would create an algorithm in artificial intelligence that could collect the data in a certain way and filter it to show a particular trend or whatever. All right, and the second thing is that machines are not subject to bias. Well, at least peripheral bias. I mean, when you design a machine, you're already getting the inventor's bias going in, but that's another thing. But you can look at it that when they take that data, it's not what personal experience that machine had. It takes the data based on how you set up that algorithm. Okay, so and humans suffer from bias. So that's what the machine is going to do. It's going to allow you to take a lot of information and process it, and then it's not going to be subject to a lot of the personal biases of all these other different types of biases that come in because it's a machine doing it. Okay, so take a look at what gets done, like recommendation engines for purchases. So Amazon, and again, I want you to kind of trigger every time I talk about Amazon. Know where that information is and look at it, because when you get to that team project at the end of the term, you have collected a lot of information that's going to help you answer those questions. So anytime I mention Amazon, the antenna should come up. Okay, and then look at you can use AI. Tesla's use it for self-driving vehicles, and we know that that's not quite working for them these days, but for Elon Musk, but that's how they do it. Look at classification algorithms for finding cancer. So you can take a look at so much data and really find factors inside of that data that will drive a decision. And it's the correlation of those factors that come together that we can't do like manually, on a large scale, because it just takes too much computation. And that's what AI will do for you. Okay, so let's put that into a decision model. So there's big data, and your corporate life is going to be all about big data. Like, you strap yourself in, because your generation of business people are going to see a gazillion more challenges than my generation, and I'm a couple of generations behind you there. Okay, so big data is looked at through artificial intelligence, and then what it does is it generates possible actions. So here's where you come in terms of using artificial intelligence. Remember, right at the start of this webinar, I talked about critical thinking. So you use your critical thinking judgment to make sense of these possible actions and take in other peripheral information, non-digital, from trends and everything else, and then make a decision, a business decision. So that's the role. So what is the role? And I've got this highlighted. The role is decision augmentation. Right? It's augmenting your capabilities to be able to make those decisions, because it's just so it's just so powerful to be able to do that. And sometimes the augmentation can get to the point where it'll actually be predictive. The factors are just so evident that it shows you that what something's going to be in the future as being predictive, or it could be prescriptive. It will describe the situation so powerfully, so with such richness, that it will become evident, what you need to do. So prescriptive, saying, yeah, this is the kind of solution that you need to implement. So that's a key piece right here. And again, it's highlighted for the role of AI in decision making, so that you know that. And then understand that there's really 4 types of data analytics. So you start with the descriptive part, and that's basically what's happening in business, accurate and live data that you look at. And then from that, there's a diagnostic, and that's ability to drill down and find the root cause and the factors that are doing that. And then the predictive is that basically business strategies, you can see where that's going, the trending. And then prescriptive, recommend what actions and strategies based on you know, the challenges or whatever's going on. So this is the key. See, I put in all these little yellow dots here so that you know that that's an important thing to know about. Again, okay, so your antenna should come up. Look at, you know, what decision making at Amazon is all about, you know, and look at, you know, what drives them. You know, they know that you know, it's selection, you know, it's the customer experience, it's the traffic that comes into the website, it's the different sellers that they have as partners going in. But again, it's all about a lower cost structure and lower prices. So this is key. And again, our guy at Amazon, Bezos, he came up with this 2 pizza rule. And remember, we talked about the number of people that should be in a group. So there shouldn't be more people that could want more than 2 pizzas. And that will give you the optimum size of a group to be able to make decisions at Amazon. So that's kind of a nice story to talk about, where you can really get the sense of what group size and how important it is, because they know that if the groups are too large, they'll never get quick results. They'll never get better results because it's just too tedious to try to, you know, get to get an effective decision made from too large of a group. Okay. All right. So here's where I talked about these golden keys. You're going to see these in my in my presentations as well. You know, my commentary presentations. So why am I focusing on that? Organized gold. Well, here's, you know, in this true colors, you know, here's organized gold, and take a look at all these attributes: planning and organizing, you know, strong leadership, loyal, respectful, detail-oriented, caring and supportive. These are all great attributes of an effective manager, and that's where you need to focus in on what's going on. Okay, and again, this NEO personality inventory, NEO meaning new, or new experiences. You know, the big 5 personality traits is a very common platform used in business. You know, if you Google big 5 personality traits, you'll find a whole list of information on that. So it's good to know about this particular test and these attributes, you know, of that personal inventory, and how that leads into you know, what kind of effective manager that you can be. Okay, so here's my pitch now, right? Good decisions are just so important, and I know, I go back to my own experience, you know, when I graduated from college and then I went into business. I had no, you know, because I came from the science and engineering portions, I never really was tuned into, you know, how important it was to make good decisions, and how that really determined your success, right? So here I wanted to give you some, you know, the advantages of good decision making. And, you know, when I say, you know, pick a decision model, pick anyone, but one that relates better to you and your personality and your capabilities, and your likelihood of remembering it so that it becomes second nature. I mean, look at all the advantages. You know, 12 reasons why how you make decisions is more important than what you decide. It's how you make those decisions. You'll make better decisions with the model. You'll save time, make better use of resources. All employees will be able to contribute more effectively because they'll understand the decision-making process. And if you know anything about Simon Sinek, and I'd researched that, Simon Sinek, S-I-N-E-K, go to TED Talks and pull out his talk about why, the power of why. And if good leaders always, you know, communicate the point of why they're doing things, and that's how people come on board. And, you know, by having a really good decision-making model, they'll understand, you know, how you're getting there, why you're getting there. All employees will be able to contribute more effectively. Professional development is enhanced. People will accomplish more and faster. The commitment will be much stronger. Employee satisfaction, engagement will improve. Employees will be able to let go and focus because they're seeing how you can, you know, if you're going to look at different alternatives, you know, you're going to get beyond biases to be able to get to the root cause and and the merits of each alternative to make a better decision. And then delegation will be easier and more effective. Employees will feel stronger sense of ownership. It's all about buy-in. It's all about alignment. The people will make fewer mistakes. And this one here, introverts can stop waiting for, you know, the big win or whatever, or for some special thing to happen, right? If you do have this key model. So that's really really important going through. And so just kind of as a review, always consider at least one other alternative. But, you know, from my total quality management experience, I'm always saying, you know, evaluate at least 3 alternatives. Pick a decision model that works for you, adopt it in a manner that is second nature. And mental models are power in waiting. Again, you know, you'll hear me talk about my my planning model. You know, where are you now? Where do you want to be, and how do you get there? I mean, that's an old Xerox model out of the 1970s, but I've embraced that model. And planning is all about doing a gap analysis, and that's what it represents. And it's in my head, and you know, I've used that now for 20 years. And it's really served me quite well. You know, I'm never at a loss of thinking when it comes to how are we going to do something, you know, how are we going to set up a set of activities, because I have that mental model in my head. So if you have that mental model in your head with others, like a great decision model, you'll be able to rally people around that. You'll put it on a screen. You'll say, this is how we're going to make this decision. You know, this is the process. Let's honor the process and get to the, you know, the effective results and outcomes that we want to get to for the organization. So as a kind of leaving this piece, I've read this book. I'm a big fan of Chip and Dan Heath, and they've written several books, and I'll probably talk about a few more when we get into other areas. But their book Decisive is layperson written so that it's easy to understand. But what I really like about it is that they tell real life stories in that book when they present a concept around decision making to really make it come home to you, that you can really say, I get it. You know, I get it. And you know, they talk about the 4 villains of decision making. So narrow framing, you know, we talked about that in terms of, you know, focus bias, confirmation bias. This is a really big one, because what it is that there'll be some key players in an organization, and they have an agenda, and they have this favorite project or favorite outcome they have in mind. So when they go out and do research, they'll only pick out the stuff that confirms, you know, the merits of doing that alternative, and they won't go into the information that counters that would really make them think, you know, and get over their bias, and then be able to make a better decision. Short-term emotion is really key. It's that sometimes, you know, you're infatuated with a particular decision on bringing the company somewhere, and it looks really good, but you know, they talk about just stopping and take yourself out of that decision and think about it. Think about it from another perspective. You know, in terms of, okay, you know, I'm the CEO of this organization. Let's just think that I'm a manager in regulation, and I'm regulating based on what this decision. How does that look from that end? And then you start, you know, you start getting out of, well, you know, I'm really keen on this, to say, oh, hang on, I better think about this a little more, or consulting with other people to make sure that, you know, you don't have these biases. And the other one is big time, is overconfidence. And if you took, especially successful organizations, they think that they can't fail. You know, and if you take a look at Elon Musk, you know, Twitter was worth, you know, 25% of what he paid for it, you know, 2 or 3 years ago. And he just had this overconfidence that he could get in there and make it better. And you just can't do that. You really got to look at all the aspects of what's going on. So this is a really good book to read. Here's, I think this one right here is basically just a summary. So you can click on that and get the summary and find out what it's all about. And then when we talk about decision making with uncertainty, you know, as a total quality management advocate, you know, I use this plan, do, check, act cycle a lot. And what it is that, you know, you plan, you identify your problem, and then you come up with a solution. So you test that potential solution. and then you actually execute it on it, and then you find out, how it's doing. And, so you're checking, and then you find out, wow, it's not quite right. So let me recalibrate the assumptions. Okay. Okay, I'm just going to go in here and just mute everybody again. Okay, so you recalibrate, and then you implement again, and then you're just going around and around. And this is the short cycle, I think, and I think it's.
Gary, sir, you are muted.
Thank you. Yeah, and normally when I do something, I seem to mute myself, so thank you for that. I really appreciate that, because I would have kept on talking. So if you see it, and here's another thing too, is sometimes I will stop sharing to find something for you, and I'm so excited about telling you something, I forget to reshare, and I'm talking about it and you can't see it. And the sooner you let me know, the better off we're all going to be. Okay, so thank you so much for that. Okay, so what I'm saying is that Deming is a really important theorist that that's in the topics, and you should know a lot about Deming and his 14 principles. And he created the Deming wheel, and then Total Quality Management actually modified it a little bit, to make it simpler and call it the Plan, Do, Check, Act. And this is a key thing. And why is it there? You notice these arrows keep going around and around. Deming is a big proponent of continuous improvement, and that's what that's what we're all about. And like in your quest, in becoming an elite business practitioner, and that mastery, it's all about continuous learning, continuous doing in terms of Plan, Do, Check, Act. So it's a good model to to be able to go through. Okay. I just want to emphasize again, right when I started, about, personality is not, it doesn't stay there. It's not static. And that's key, right? You notice I had the key here. So, we do not think, feel, and behave the same way at home as we do at work or while out socializing at friends. We might be seen as more conscientious at work than home. And again, if I talk about Massey, Massey, you could probably find them. If you go through a significant emotional event, maybe you lose a friend, or you lose a job or whatever, your personality just may change if it's that significant. And so you may not have the same business personality than you had when you first started. Or maybe you had a big loss, so that you become a lot more conservative. Or maybe you had a big win and you become more of a risk taker. So just think of that. And you can read this article. I've got the link here, but it talks about, if you can shift your personality situation, like your style, to meet more conditions, you'll have better team dynamics. You'll make better decisions. You'll have great leadership styles that will be able to relate with different types of people. You'll be able to deal with conflict resolution a lot better, and you'll have a better well-being workplace. So that's key. But at the end of the day, doing those personality tests, just remember this. You'll walk away feeling closer, more capable at collaborating with each other. I mean, that's the key of getting that all out. Just wanted to share with you, I've been working with DISC for a long time in my consulting, and I like it, especially when there's partner owners, and then they can understand that their core values and how they behave are much related than what they think. And what the DISC personality testing does, it looks at two elements of your personality. It looks at your natural style, and that's how you are in terms of, if you're dominant, direct, or inspiring, or supportive, or cautious, in terms of when you're on your own, when you're not faced with a group that you're trying to manage. And then they look at your adapted external style. So as a manager inside of a inside of an organization, you can see that these attributes of your style change, because it's external now. And you can see here, in this particular one, and this is probably a survey I did of some business owner, where inspiring interactive was really low, but yet, they had more of that when they were by themselves for their own family or whatever. So what I get them to do is I actually get them to, I have a core value survey where I get them to identify their key values personally, and then the key values that they espouse to for the organization that they're in, especially with owners, what do they want the values of that organization to be about? And you can see that they'll, just from this illustration, they change. And then if I would look at, what DISC told me and look at their values, and if they weren't compatible in any way, it gave me a sense of discussion to say, well, here's where you might be failing in your decision making, because there's an incompatibility in your external style and the values that you want for that company, and those kind of things. So that's how you can use these as tools to improve or whatever. So here's just a little bit about DISC and what it's all about. And I think that's all I'm going to be. Oh, other than the fact that down here, what I'd recommend, one more survey, I'm sorry, but if you go here, you can have a free personal values assessment by going to this link, and you'll take this survey and it'll give you a sense of what's going on. So I'll just share with you, like in my personal life, right? People just don't realize how values drive their decisions. So two of my strong values was work ethic and family orientation, right? But I didn't know which one was more important. And it caused me some grief in my relationships, because what would happen is that, say it's Friday night and I'm driving home because I have a date with my wife, and this is like, say, 30 years ago, and they say, oh, Gary, you know what? We've got this business opportunity. If you come back to the office, we can figure this out. We'll make millions of dollars for the organization. And what would I do? I turn the car around and I go to work and call my wife and say, oh, I'm going to be a little late, right? So that caused stress on the relationship, even though I talked a real strong line about family and relationships and everything else. And I didn't realize that until I had, mishaps in my relationships. And now in today's world, I know where that is. And if someone said that to me now, I'd say, oh, can it wait? Maybe by tomorrow I have this date, I'm going on and whatever. So those are the kind of things that really get you to think about where, what drives you. And then if you know what drives you, then you'll know how you fit in a certain style of an organization. There's so many people who hire onto a company because they think you have a good future and a good salary, but they don't look how they fit with their core values and the culture of the organization. So that's one thing. And the other thing is know who you are. And if you know who you are, no matter what you do, you're going to be a better manager for it. Okay, so I'm going to leave you with that tonight. I'm going to get you to look at those deliverables that we talked about for week 2. They're right here. And by now, everyone, I hope, has registered to do the surveys. And how you register, if you still don't know, go to Blackboard, go to it's probably the first announcement that I sent out, and it has a link to Pearson where you go in and you actually register, and it's the surveys. It's not the quizzes or other assignments. It's just the surveys that you have to do, and use that link. Because if you go to Pearson independently to their website, you're not going to get in, and it's going to ask you for an instructor ID, which you won't have. But if you go in through Blackboard on that link, then you can go right in, you can register, you pay your fee online, and then you're in, and then you get access to the e-text. So if you have any questions about that, email me, I'll send you that information. But here's your deliverables this week. I'm hoping that you've met with your teams already. If not, go to the enrollment piece on Blackboard. You'll see it in the navigation panel. It'll say group and enrollment. Get into a group, meet with those people, and then look in topic 1 for the team charter document, you know, and download it, fill it out with the group, upload it back. And if you have any questions about that team charter, and again, you know, I think I've explained that in the videos that you've been getting as well, so that, you know, you could find out more, but I'd be happy to share that with you. Okay, so any questions at all before we leave? Any questions? How are we doing? We doing okay? Can I see some thumbs up? We're all okay. We're all excited. We got 50 people on board today, and that's really encouraging. I would again encourage you to ask me questions. You know, use the chat or send me emails, and we'll go from there. But you know, keep on plugging, all right? And just do a little bit every day. And, you know, you want to exercise that long-term memory. You don't want it all in short-term memory where you cram and then you don't do well in a test and stuff like that. Okay? We'll talk to you later then. Yeah, go ahead.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, you go right ahead, man.
Yeah. If you were to manage a business, what
Yes.
type of view of management will you apply?
Myself?
Yeah.
Well, I'm more of a participative guy, so that, you know, I would engage the people to you know, to understand what's going on. So I would look at the theorists that would show me you know, the participative theories about how to do that. Does that make a sense for you?
Thanks, Mr. Gary.
Okay, but having said that, just remember though, businesses are related to the industries that they're in. And so, you know, so if I was going to get into a business like where I would be competing with like PepsiCo is a transactional business. You know, they drive people and they don't treat them that fairly. And it's all about profit and reward in that type of company. So that with my particular style, you know, I probably wouldn't go in that particular industry. So you got to understand, you know, the industry that you're in as well, and if you fit in that particular industry, in the culture that's associated with that industry. So that's something you may want to look at as well. Okay. All right. Okay, so you're being recorded, and what's going on then is that the recording will be on my YouTube channel by tomorrow sometime, and I'll send a notice out with the link, but you can access it through MS Teams, you know, on this platform here. Okay, so have a great night. And
thank you. I just have one question regarding joining a group. Can we just join any group?
yes, you can. It's self-enrollment. So, you know, especially if you know particular people, you know, maybe there's 2 others that you're friends with, you've worked with before and aren't in a group. All 3 of you can just pick you know, a group number and go in and enroll into it.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
All right then. Okay. So good night and sleep tight.
Thank you, sir. Have a good night.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Thank you, Sir Gary.
All right. You're welcome.